everybody, and welcome back to the Empathic Leader podcast, where we talk all things empathy, emotional intelligence, and leadership. And you're really going to love my guest today because he's someone that I think is really following the empathy path in the same way that we are. He has a little different bent on the whole thing, but I'm really excited to have him here with us today. Art Fromm is a podcaster, an author, a facilitator, and a speaker, and a man of many talents, and has been working to integrate empathy and emotional intelligence through his seamless sales method. Because if empathy is about understanding and connection through perspective taking, that's exactly what he's talking about in understanding the importance of the client through discovery and client engagement, understanding value, risk, and cost circle, and all of the other things that go into sales that maybe we don't always think about. He is a dynamic speaker, author, and workshop facilitator. His career spans engineering, software, sales leadership, and sales enablement roles, which is pretty amazing. I mean, he's done a lot of things. Grounded in real-world success and built over 2 decades of client trust, his practical experience and results-driven approach make him an impactful speaker or facilitator. He's currently in the greater Pittsburgh region, and he and I met through Blue Talks. We got to actually speak together this past spring at Columbia University. And we just found that we really were kind of on the same path, if in a little bit of a different direction. We really enjoyed being able to connect with each other there. And I mean, the poor guy, as if speaking wasn't enough, and he had spoken the week before at Miami, he was also the MC. So that tells you the kind of person he is and that he would jump in and help no matter what. So please help me welcome Art Fromm.
Hello there. Hi, everybody. Hi, Melissa. So good to be with you.
Oh, really, it's so good to have you here. Yeah. I know we talked about having you here for like ever, and it just, hey, better late than never.
Where did the year go, right? All of a sudden we're in November. That doesn't even seem possible.
Oh my goodness. I know, right? Like we're going into the holidays and I still feel like it's last January. Well, let's start by, I'd like to know a little bit more about you and your path, specifically looking, at leadership and maybe interactions you've had with emotional intelligence and empathy or not, and how maybe they helped you in working on your program and putting everything together.
I'm an engineer by study, as you mentioned, so that kind of describes my default personality. Is probably more analytic and more of the thinking type and stuff like that, and what would maybe be called more extroverted or introverted, right? So not really feeling comfortable in crowds and whatever else. But I was very blessed early in my career that when I saw the computerization of engineering and CAD and CAM in the early 80s, I was drawn into that. And just by happenstance, that also drew me into other settings where I was involved with many other people, user group meetings, committees that I was on for the software companies that I was using, and even doing some hosting of clients and customers, not of us, because we were implementing the solution inside of, I was at Union Carbide at the time. We were using it for process plant design, but we had visitors coming in that the computer company would bring to our site because we were doing some things that were pretty advanced. And so I think I had to quickly adapt and learn that, it isn't about what we're doing necessarily. And I needed to get out of my shell a little bit as far as feeling comfortable in those environments. And it was just so natural and fun to hear what others were trying to do and then help them to see what the possibilities were based on what we were doing. But I always, I'd like to think, and that was so long ago, but I do remember just great experiences of the fascinating things that were going on and connecting with them that way. So I'd say, earlier in my career, I probably didn't run into, it was college right into all this. And within a couple of years, I was doing these types of things. So I don't think I really gave empathy too much of a thought in a professional world, at least up until that point.
Well, I mean, there is the stereotype of engineers that's out there as well, and the ones that I've worked with, it isn't that they lack empathy or emotional intelligence. It's just that you're in a very cognitive centric role, Yeah,
it's like I can hear what you're saying. I can feel or maybe understand what you're talking about. And then I'm going to get down to my thing and do my calculations and, do my thing. And it's not out of disrespect or anything. It's just the way that we're wired. It's kind of like the chart that you have in chapter 2 that shows the different ways that people are, the four quadrant chart. I found that very interesting. And it's not quadrants, it's more like a diamond, but I like that in terms of thinking that through separately. And we don't need to get into this too far, but I always grew up around, in the church and all that stuff. I was very blessed to have parents that were very involved, and I saw my parents and my dad very involved in all that. And it put me in situations where there was just empathy through the love for each other as far as fellow, whatever, worshipers or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think I had a lot of that, but I sort of separated that into, not purposely, but that was personal. Then there was business. And then I started to realize, you know what, this is all founded in the same types of things. And there's a lot more to it, which started to become more real to me as I got into the sales world and all the importance of empathy in that world.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit then, because I'd like to hear more about your transition, from engineering into that sales role.
Yeah, so because I was involved with the software companies and they knew what the type of thing I was doing, and I was very involved with their user committees and things, I was recruited by a large software company in Huntsville, Alabama by the name of Intergraph, and that moved me into sales type roles. So I started as basically a sales engineer. Back then it was called like an application engineer, where you were just doing the computer applications in support of the sales process. And in that, I was immediately able to start connecting that it didn't matter what we had. It was about what the client wanted to do. It was what their journey was and how we could help them through it. And it was very interesting because it was multi-layered, actually. We had a big client, which was the U.S. Navy. They had just awarded Intergraph a huge software contract. So we had to understand what they were trying to do and have that relationship. But then they were working with us to help U.S. shipbuilders become capable of doing some of the Navy contracts in the United States, which had previously not been done with commercial shipbuilders. So it was a lot of understanding where people were coming from, what their motives were. There was a lot on the line to make it successful. And we were playing a part, but in some ways, there was a much bigger picture going on that we had to tune into. And that's what I recall, even, just thinking about what we're going to talk about today, there was a lot of that was needed. And maybe it just started to come more naturally at that point, but super important.
Yeah. And I actually really appreciate you pointing that out because, when you think of sales, people are talking more about empathy in sales in particular. But when you really think about it, if empathy is understanding connection through perspective taking, that's like a huge part of what sales should be, because you want to be able to take the perspective of your client and of what it is that you're selling, of the organization itself. And without that connection and understanding and the ability to take perspective, I would think that the ability to do sales would really go down.
Absolutely. And, in my initial kind of support role or the pre-sales part of the sales relationship, because in case everybody doesn't know, in business to business sales, the big type of sales usually have a technical type person who's going to be more wired like an engineer, because as it implies, it's about the technology. And then you have the salesperson who is more focused on the relationship and closing out the deal and the T's and C's and all that stuff that goes with it. And the whole idea is that you're supposed to be working together better. The reason I bring this up is because I was in many different situations with salespeople who are very good at empathy and reading the customer and understanding not just, intellectually what's needed, the cognitive part of it, but having that active empathy of, yeah, and even, I've been there before, I've done this before, I've helped other clients before, and here's how this can help you type thing. But first and foremost, focusing on the client. So there was plenty of other salespeople, unfortunately, that it was just about, just close the deal and move on to the next deal. And it was almost like, I don't really care what they're doing. I just got to make my quota. And those were the ones that were frankly more difficult. So I had many mentors and really, really good salespeople that I work with where I saw this in action. And again, as I go back and reflect on it, I can definitely see the difference. Maybe didn't realize that was what was underneath it at the time. And then that has helped me with my direction, because then I went into sales as well. And I was doing a manager of sales teams. And then I was in enablement for the last 25 years. So I've been helping companies with what they're going through to help them be better. And therefore, this is sort of like the third meta level of empathy in terms of understanding my client and understanding what they're trying to do with their client. And
Yeah.
it really does get back to that of a true understanding. And in our type of sales, in the consultative sales, the B2B sales, we call it like qualification and discovery. So the point is, the intent is you're understanding the alignment between what they're trying to do and what you can offer as a solution. And I often talk about the fact that our solutions have no inherent value, meaning whatever we have, it doesn't matter unless it can help the other person. It doesn't
Yes.
matter if I have the best solution for, I don't know, cutting lawns. If you don't need your lawn cut, why would you care?
Yeah.
So the empathy part of it comes into play, where we're doing the discovery and finding out not just what solution we should propose, but what are they thinking? What's on the line for them? What are they motivated by? How do we make a win-win out of it? And those are the salespeople that I'm sure everybody who's listening is thinking, oh yeah, I've seen somebody like that. Somebody made me feel like they really cared. Those are the salespeople that are excelling. Others, and maybe in just a transactional business, but I still would always focus on the client. Others are just sort of like cut and run, and that doesn't work. So my book is all about not really sales. It's funny because, as you started out saying, there's this sort of misunderstanding or a stereotype about sales, and everybody thinks of the pushy salesperson.
Yeah.
What really we want to focus on is the buyer. So in my world, and what several of us, a lot of us in these leadership roles are doing, is helping to continue to focus on the buyer, the stakeholders, the people, and what they're trying to do. And once we understand that, then we can help them more. The danger is that it's too easy to ignore that or hope that you don't have to do it, because it takes time at the beginning of the
Yeah.
sales cycle. So there's a lot of dynamics going on there that empathy sometimes is unless it's natural, it's not something that you would think about, because the tendency is just to try to get the sale.
Yeah. But that actually, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're the sales expert, not me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you're really kind of hindering your own progress, because if you can actually have that empathy and sell ethically, and, if people do need their long cut, I have something that's going to make this better, kind
Yeah,
of thing,
right.
That's how you create long-term relationships. And it is a relationship. It's not just a transactional in, out, done, which is where unfortunately some of the stereotypes come from. But rather, this becomes a collaborative relationship where you're actually able to reach out to people and understand what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct with that?
Absolutely. And it's gotten even more important for a whole nother reason in the last 10 to 15 years. Remember everybody when we all had cable TV, and we picked a cable TV provider, and there was a bunch of channels we could access, and pretty much just stuck with the same provider, and they'd add channels once in a while. Well,
Yeah.
now, as we all know, we have tons of different streaming services. I mean, if any of us actually counted them, we'd probably be amazed that it could be like 15 or 20 of them that we sometimes use. And of course, the
Yeah.
people that do the TV shows and stuff know that, because I'm on one particular series that my wife and I are watching, and we're now having to have a third connection to another provider to see like season 3. But why I bring that up is why I bring that up is if you have a streaming service that you're not using, you're going to stop paying for it. You're going to suspend your service or stop the service. Same thing is happening in business to business sales now. When I was back in the day, we would have, literally we would have, and I kept one of these relics. This isn't the actual thing, but this is an example of it. We'd have a DVD that had the software on it. And when the
Mhm.
sale was done, in order to close the sale, you delivered the CD or DVD with the software on it. And if they took delivery, that was considered a sale, and the salesperson often moved on to the next thing. Now, they should have empathy. They should want a relationship. They should want to continue to grow that. It wasn't so required back then. Now it's more important than ever, because the software in many cases is not the close of the deal. It's somebody using it. They don't pay unless they use it, just like our subscription services. If they don't like it, they stop paying, and therefore the company doesn't get the revenue. So in a very strange way, sales has to become more empathetic. I don't know it as that, because it's got to be about the relationship. It used to be you'd close the deal, and then theoretically the salesperson could move on. Now that close is really the start of a relationship of consumption, where the client, the user, is starting to actually consume. So the salesperson has to think about that end in mind. And I think that's thankfully, driving to have more empathy for what the end result is and equipping them for success. A lot of salespeople, you know that a lot of salespeople are wanting to get to know you by, hey, what's your kids doing in sports and all that, and that's fine. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's just surface level. It's sort of like that small talk to make it feel like there's empathy. What's
Yeah.
needed is that deeper level of where are you coming from and what are you trying to do? And what are our mutual interests so we can get a win-win? So instead of a sell, it really needs to be about a buy. And once we flip that script, no matter what kind of sales you're in, or any persuasion for that matter, because sales is persuasion. So if you're influencing anybody, if you have somebody that needs to make a decision that you're trying to help them with, thinking about it from the perspective of what's in it for them and focusing on them is going to be the best way to a win-win.
What I hear over and over again through that understanding of the other person is perspective taking. Really, because to ask them about, how are your kids, or what do you think about the Knicks or whatever, being surface level, you're not actually taking their perspective. It's just frosting, So I think those are all really good points.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned it too in the intro about the idea of the balance of what it is that client, and this again can apply to anybody in any decision, whether you're buying a car, or whether you're deciding to move, take a new job, or do a huge software purchase. There's three main elements. It's what's the value you're going to get out of it? What's the benefit for you? And then there's what's the risk of doing something? And then there's what's the total cost of ownership, or the total cost of executing on it. And in one talk that I did, I gave the quick example of, back in the day, companies would move you to a new job when they recruited you, and they would, because you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, I'm going to move from Buffalo, New York to Huntsville, Alabama. Like, what's Huntsville, Alabama like? And I'm thinking there's a lot of risk that could be involved there. Is it going to be right? Will it be the right job? So the companies know that, so they start to de-risk it. And the equation is quite simple. It's value here. If you think of a scale, the tips, and this is in the favor of moving forward with the decision, and this is against the decision, you got value, which would tip the scale in the right direction of moving forward. But what counteracts it is the risk and cost. And the key thing about the empathy part of it is, because this is the math, right? The empathy part is it's about the perception of the value. It's about the perception of the risk. It's about the perception of the cost. So yes, there's hard numbers underneath there, but what is that person who's making the decision perceiving? What are they truly feeling? And are they going to expose that feeling comfortable that you're really trying to help them? Or are they going to hold it close and not want to reveal that? So the dynamic in a sale or any persuasive engagement is very, very multifaceted. And the idea of truly understanding what they're trying to do, and even selling them a little bit on the idea of help me to help you. I'm not here to make money. Yeah, I do make money, of course. I'm here to help you. And if they can understand that, and that's why it's good if we can share and be more transparent, now I'm in a better position to help. So there's a little bit of an initial trust, a small amount of trust that starts of, are they really going to help me? And then it's, oh, they are going to help me. Now I'm going to be more open. Now we can get to the perception of those components and then really help them with alleviating the risks so that it works to their favor and their benefit.
As you're talking, I'm thinking Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, wrote a book called The Way of the Wolf. And he talks about three things that as a salesperson you really need. But one of those is, I really think that I like this person and I believe that they are an expert in their field. And it all kind of comes right back around to that being able to take the perception of the other person. And I want to be able to like whoever's selling me as a person, because I want to be able to feel that they're going to understand me and what I'm trying to get done.
It's a very interesting nuance, because we've all heard the expression, people buy from people they like.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that that's the only reason that they would buy. The point of it is they probably won't buy from people they don't like. Right.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, what happens is sales people, and again, I include myself in this, I sell the services and the offerings that I have, right? Salespeople might just hear that as get them to like you, and then you've got the sale. And now we're back to that surface level stuff where it's like the schmoozing and all that. And, for some people, that is what they need first and foremost. In the South, it's a lot different than if you're in New York City or if you're in another country. There's different traditions and cultures and things. So, if you're in the South in the US and you don't spend time to talk about whatever and a little bit of that, maybe it's not going to go anywhere. If you're in New York City and you start talking about miscellaneous stuff, it's like, get to the point, let me hear what the point is. So the thing about people buy from people they like, it's that other deeper level of like. It's not the surface level of like. That doesn't wear, it wears thin very quickly. But the real like, I don't know if we could say love, because that implies other things, but it's that empathetic like of, I want to get to know you because I want to help you, and I can only help you if I know more about you.
Absolutely. So we're actually going into leadership now. We're talking about servant leadership, right? I mean, the fact
it's on my shelf right here, servant leader.
There you go. Yep, absolutely. But that you are there to help and to provide, a service as a servant, as opposed to just knocking out a quota.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about that before the show a little bit.
Yeah, and here's the challenge, and you mentioned this in your book about the one aspect of suppressing the empathy. Like, you can have the empathy, but then you just suppress it, you don't do anything with it or whatever. I think a salesperson sometimes is trying to be pragmatic and saying, I need to get to know them, but I can't spend too much time on that because it's just going to lengthen the deal out. Whereas my perspective, and I teach this in my workshops, is spending that extra time at the front is not, and you don't do it because it builds the relationship. It's just the right thing to do. But spending more time at the front to get to understand them will help both of you in a few different ways. One is, yes, long-term, if you get involved, you've already got that basis. But the other thing is, you can quickly understand if there's a fit or not, because there just might not be a fit, and that's okay too. I think you talked about in your book and things. By the way, I have it on my Kindle right here.
Oh, cool! Yay!
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
And there's the diagram I was referring to. I got to be careful because my camera sometimes refocuses, so I don't want to get refocused. But anyways, the reason I bring this up is because when it comes to that little bit of extra effort, it helps to find out if there's alignment, and there may not be alignment. And if there's not alignment, let's find it out as soon as we can, and it can be on many different levels. So as a leader of the sale, whoever that is, that's something that they should be doing. And then leaders who are running sales teams, this is an aspect that cannot be overemphasized, because it is something that everybody's looking for now. There's a lot of noise out there, and you and your sales team can stand out by how much true empathy you have for what's going on. And just think of the perception of risk, value, and total cost of ownership. Those things alone require that extra level of paying attention and understanding at a deeper level.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's so much more to it than just, you think sales as like this discrete thing, but it encompasses so much of the human condition.
Well, and the point is, it should, right?
Yes.
And this is where the shortcuts start to get taken, because it does require that much. It requires a lot of emotional investment into it. And this is why working as a team. So again, if you have a pre-sales person and a salesperson working as a team, the pre-sales person can be focused more on what are the requirements and things. And that's not the only thing. They want to be focused on the value and everything as well. But the salesperson can really learn from the sales engineer a lot about the client. here's one fun fact that maybe you and your audience don't know. When it comes to inherent trust, like really feeling like not just that you like, but you trust somebody, as we were talking about, a survey that a colleague of mine, John Kerr, did, he found out that when it comes to trust, salespeople versus the pre-sales people are half as trusted as the pre-sales people. So the pre-sales people, and that's a whole dynamic because you think pre-sales being more introverted and more fact-based and all that, yet they are trusted more than twice as much as the salesperson for a lot of the reasons we talked about. Now, what does that say? It says that the pre-sales person may have a better relationship. There's another level of empathy that's going on there that the salesperson can and should, latch into and utilize. I won't say exploit because that's the wrong intent, but utilize and partner together. And that's why my book, which you see behind me, of course, and then that's why this is about the SE and the AM. So the sales engineer and the account manager, pre-sales and sales, working together seamlessly is the key here. You all have different parts of the puzzle. And think about this even when you're involved with a family decision, taking care of a loved one, or again, deciding to move. You went through this. You talk about it. You went through this. You and Dan and whoever else was involved, right, is talk about moving all the way across the country. There's different aspects and different perspectives that you can then get that collective idea of what's going on, and reading the room and reading the other people is a really key part of it.
Well, and actually, I wanted to ask you about your book because you're taking leadership to a little different level, not only with your book, but you have your own podcast, which I got a chance to take a look at it and I loved it, but I would love to hear a little more about it from you and, being able to get your word out there and lead people, through your media and what you're doing.
Yes, so I did 12 weeks because I had never done it before. So I did 12 weeks in a row, one per week on Thursday nights. And this season, season one concluded. It concluded just a few weeks ago. And then I'm just taking a bit of a hiatus to work on a bunch of other stuff in the meantime, and then probably start it back up in January. But what I love about that is that, again, providing different perspectives. What it helped me to do too was just spend some purposeful time on some of those other aspects that we don't get a chance to. And that's what I like about your book so much, is in your TED Talk. It helps us with something that maybe is like, oh yeah, I get that. I kind of know that. But no, we need to take some time to purposely think about these things. And that's what I liked about the podcast. It was a lot. You do this, this as we're speaking. It's a lot of work to go into it to make it meaningful and helpful for the audience. But it's so worth it because that shows another level of empathy of, I'm offering this just like you are as a gift. I'm offering this as, we're friends. We met, like you said, at Columbia, and there's a connection and we want to share with our audiences. And I'm going to share this with my audience, and I'll share your things with my audience as well. So that's what it's really all about.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. We're human beings. No matter what we do or where we go, we're human beings interacting with human beings. That's what we do.
Yep.
The rest is just window dressing.
Yeah. No matter what level you are in a company or whatever, So It's a good way to look at things. And it takes the pressure off, frankly. And this is the thing, even about sales. Like, you don't have to try to perform, just get to know the other person. And that's a lot of fun. People are amazing.
They are, and they'll surprise you with how much good is there if you give them half a chance.
And by the way, they'll share it with others. So one interesting little flip as a side note, most of my business, thankfully, for the last 25 years has been all incoming business, either because of relationships I have and a lot because of referrals, even third level referrals, where somebody went, was with a company that I trained. They left and went somewhere else. They brought me in there. I mean, in one case, they were like, you were my second phone call as soon as I got here, and then that company wound up with somebody and they went somewhere else and they brought me in there. So it shows the power of true connection. Now, that means I don't have a super high volume business, but I have a super, intense high touch business with the clients that I do have. And that's not for everybody, and you can't always scale that. One of the reasons I'm shifting to more of the speeches, more of the sales kickoffs, the seminars, is to try to reach more people with a message that's not the full message, because I have a portfolio that's huge, but it's
Mhm.
that outreach message. And so now I'm having to market myself a little bit of doing that, because that's something I want to try to break into to help others at a bigger scale. And that's been an interesting transition for myself as well, which is why we met through Blue Talks, because they're helping me do
Yeah.
that.
But you're taking the steps to do that because you do have that leadership to be able to share and, bring people on this journey with you and show them a little better way to do things. So,
Yeah, a lot of people are like, Art, are you retired? I'm like, no, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of like reinventing and, going the next level direction with the publishing of the book last year and all these fun things that we're engaged with. So I just think it's a lot of fun, and it's so good to meet others and help them out.
this has been fantastic. And I have one closing question for you.
Mhm.
So, if you can think of someone in your life, alive or dead, known or unknown, that has made a difference on you and how you perceive and do leadership, who would it be and why?
Mm, yeah, a number of people come to mind, and this might sound really cliche, but I'm going to go with my dad. So in fact, on the last show that I did for my podcast, it was on October 23rd, exactly 15 years since he passed away. So just this last October 23rd was the 15th year of him passing away. And I did a little tribute to him on the show. And I talked a little bit about this in terms of why I say that is because he was invested in people. He was an engineer. He helped man get to the moon. He invented Go Blue, believe it or not, the Michigan cheer, Go Blue. It's a long story. You can check it out on the podcast if you want. But why I say that he inspired me, because he had such a passion for helping others, very selfless, very giving. I saw him sacrifice a lot of things in order to, be involved again at church. Grew up around that. Really great example and things like that. He was a huge leader there. Did get to know people, and I know it was hard for him. Like, that's the thing for engineers in particular. It doesn't come natural, so it's a little bit more stress on the system to do that. But he went the extra mile to know that, and he had tons of friends. And I remember in 1973. We took a cross-country trip across the country for 30 days, visited 27 states. And along the way, we stopped, and half of those stays were people he knew. Half of the nights were people that they knew, my parents knew, around the country, which blew me away. So talk about lasting relationships. I mean, my mom's still in contact. She's up in Buffalo right now in 92, in contact with good friends that they had when she and my dad met. So it is the example of true relationships can go a long way, and they last.
Wow, that is the perfect cherry on top. So, Art, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a true pleasure, and I've learned a lot, and I'm sure my audience will as well.
Glad to help. And we hit the treetop, so digging more into your book, I'm happy to help as well any way I can. And especially if there's a sales kickoff or something coming up, and this is maybe something that you as a sales leader haven't talked much with your team about, I'd love to help. And even maybe Melissa and I can do something together. Who knows? We'll just keep those options open. But yeah, glad to help any way possible. I know that you'll have the links and stuff, so everybody please explore that. There's tons of resources in the links. But it's my pleasure. Great talking with you and sharing.
Absolutely. And yes, we will have all of your links below in the show notes and just underneath the video so people can get a hold of you. Where is the best place to get a hold of you?
It's LinkedIn. So I'm the only Art Fromm as far as I know. I mean, if you just do LinkedIn/in/Art Fromm, you should find me. And then my website is teamsalesdevelopment.com. Teamsalesdevelopment.com.
Perfect.
And it's Fromm with 2 M's, by the way, which you can see on the video here.
Yeah. So definitely check Art out, get a read of his book, take a look at the podcast, connect with him on LinkedIn. There's such a wealth of wisdom here. And definitely if you're looking for someone who can really lead sales teams and understand how to bring this stuff forward, he's definitely the guy to talk to.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to my audience, thank you so much for being with me. This is going to be the last episode for this season, but we will be back in the winter with more empathy, emotional intelligence, and leadership. In the meantime, when you're checking out Art's book, you can still check out mine as well. It's called The Empathic Leader. And my TEDx was just released, and we're already rounding 40,000 views. So definitely give it a look. Thanks so much. And we'll see you in the spring.